Hello everyone. So today we'll discuss the common mistakes in using generative AI and how to counter them. So we all know that generative AI has hit the tech sector like a storm. After the skyrocketing popularity of ChatGPT, every big player wants to be ahead in this race, and companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple, Adobe, and many others have already integrated GenAI technologies in their existing tools to enhance their capabilities. The users are also equipped with these tools and they are creating new content and images, music videos, etc. And they are also using them as an assistant for daily life. They are using generative tools to get help in study. They are asking health related questions in enhancing personal effectiveness, and they are even sharing deep secrets of personal life and uh, relationships and others. So while the target of these tools is to enrich users' life and to make it easier, it is also very important for users to understand the basic nature of these technologies. So AI basic in nature, these all these LLMs are non-deterministic in nature, and so a user has to understand how these models behave and what are the kind of mistakes that they can do while using these tools. So in this video we'll discuss these mistakes and how we can counter them. So in this is the agenda of this video. First we'll discuss the importance of understanding the GenAI user mistakes, and then we'll discuss what are the common mistakes related to data privacy and security, bias and fairness, ethical concerns, IP issues and content ownership, and technical limitations. So, okay, now we'll start with the first section, that is importance of understanding the mistakes. So let's so first is preventing misinformation. So we all know that Gen AI can produce highly convincing but entirely false information as well. Without critical understanding of these limitations, users might inadvertently spread misinformation. These AI generated falsehoods, they can look extremely credible, making them particularly dangerous in fields like journalism, research, and academic work. Ethical responsibility. Now, these AI tools, they have become more integrated into various sectors. Understanding its boundaries in ethical imperative, it is very important. So this knowledge will help us in preventing potential harm that the unchecked AI outputs can cause. It will help us ensure fair and unbiased representation, as well as protect the vulnerable population from discriminatory or skewed content. Third is quality control. So knowing AI's limitations allow us for more effective human oversight, better validation of processes, improved AI system design, and we are will be able to create more accurate and reliable AI content. Then strategic implementation. So if we understand the mistakes, uh, it will help the users and the organizations that are deploying or implementing these tools to set realistic expectations from AI technologies, to develop appropriate use cases, and to create robust verification mechanisms, and to allocate resources more effectively while developing these tools. Then the fifth one is technological development. So by identifying and understanding AI mistakes, researchers and developers, they can improve AI training methodologies. They can develop more sophisticated algorithms. They can create more nuanced and contextually aware AI systems. They can also address the inherent bias that comes into these models from data. So next is professional and personal risk mitigation. So in professional setting, blindly trusting AI can lead to incorrect business decisions, legal complications, reputational damage, or even financial losses. So if you understand the kind of mistakes that you can do while deploying these technologies, so you can handle these risks in a better way. And the last one is maintaining human agency. So if you understand AI limitations, it ensures that human remains central to decision making process. And we have to understand that AI just is a tool for us, and we should not believe it blindly, and we should question its authority before making use of it in our work or in our daily life. So these are all the points where we have discussed that why it is important to understand the mistakes that a user can do in using AI. Next, we'll move to the common mistakes of AI. So AI common mistakes, they can be categorized majorly in these categories. So data privacy and security, bias and fairness, ethical concerns, intellectual property issues and content ownership, and technical limitations. So let's discuss them one by one. We'll dive deeper into each category and we'll find related mitigation strategies. So first is data privacy and security. So data, we all know, is central to all AI efforts. It has been compared to electricity or oil in the sense that it is transforming the way we work. However, using sorry, However, using data in training or passing information while interacting with generative AI is prone to privacy and security risk. So we can like a user can commit different kind of mistakes while interacting with generative AI. So these risks can be categorized. So first is sharing sensitive personal information. So one of the most significant risks is unknowingly sharing sensitive personal information with generative AI models. It includes personally identifiable information, that is names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, social security number, driving licenses, etc. Protected health information, which includes medical records, health insurance information, and others. Financial information like bank account numbers, credit card numbers, investment information, and others. And the problem with this is that when you input this data into a generative AI tool, it might be stored, used for training the model further, or potentially even leaked. This can lead to identity theft, financial fraud, or any other serious consequence. And what are the mitigation strategies? So, first is never input SPI directly. Avoid entering any sensitive personal information into generative AI prompts or chat boxes. Anonymize data. If you need to use personal data for a specific task, you have to anonymize it first. This involves removing or replacing identifiable information. Use synthetic data. Consider using synthetic data, which is artificially generated data that mimics real world data without containing actual personal information. So, in these examples, you can see that with no need to use the real name while generating the content, or also the tools that you are using, they should be monitored to avoid leaking personal information. And second is uploading confidential or proprietary data. So users often mistakenly upload confidential or proprietary data to generative AI platforms, thinking that it is safe and efficient way to process or analyze it. This can include trade secrets like formulas, design processes, etc. Intellectual property like patents, copyrights, trademarks, and internal business documents like financial reports, marketing plans, customer list, and others. So the problem with this is that when you upload this data, it can be exposed to unauthorized access, potentially compromising your company's competitive advantage or violating the contractual obligations. So how you can mitigate it? You have to avoid uploading confidential data. So refrain from uploading any sensitive business data to public generative AI services. Use of on-premise or private cloud solutions. So consider using on-premise or on-cloud deployment of generative AI models, which offer greater control over data security, data minimization. So only upload the minimum amount of data that is necessary for the task at hand. And next one is ignoring privacy policies and terms of services. So users often fail to read the privacy policies and terms of services of the generative AI platforms. This can lead to a lack of understanding about how their data is being collected, used, and stored. The problem with this is that without understanding these policies, user may unknowingly consent to data practices that they find unacceptable. And mitigation strategies are: first, carefully review the policies. Always read the privacy policies and terms of service before using any generative AI service. Look for the data retention policies. Pay close attention to how long the platform retains your data and how it is used. Choose reputable providers only. Select providers with clear and transparent data privacy practices. So next one is there are other security concerns which are generic to any data sharing platform. So using public Wi-Fi or unsecured network and failing to update software and systems. So by using VPNs or by using strong passwords and continuously updating the software and systems, you can avoid these security risks. Now we'll move to the second category of the mistakes that a user can make, and this is related to bias and fairness. So bias and fairness is very important in the context of generative AI. So now generative AI has rapidly become a powerful tool for content generation, problem solving, and automation. However, it relies on vast databases, which means that it can inherit and amplify the existing biases that are there in the data. So while much attention is given to biases embedded within training data, users themselves can also contribute to unfair and biased outcome when interacting with these models. In the given images, the generative AI model for like we have asked a question to describe the corporate rates of India and America, and it has given some generic answer. But this output or this answer may change based on the company you are talking with, or may also depend on the team within the company. So it is not a generic answer which is applicable to every firm that is there in India or America. So how we can avoid mistakes related to bias and fairness, or what kind of mistakes we can commit or describe further. So first is prompt engineering reinforced stereotypes. So the way we phrase prompts significantly influences the output of generative AI. Users may unknowingly craft prompts that reinforce harmful stereotypes, which is related to gender, race, religion, socioeconomic status, and other sensitive attributes. The problem with this is that, and like a prompt like write a story about a hardworking businessman. This might lead AI to generate a story featuring a white male in a suit, neglecting other demographics. Or a prompt like write a story about a criminal could disproportionately generate stories featuring individuals from a marginalized community, perpetuating negative stereotypes. So how we can mitigate it? So these are the mitigations. First is new use of neutral and inclusive language. Use neutral and inclusive language in prompts. Instead of using businessman, consider using business person or entrepreneur. Avoid gendered pronouns unless necessary, and be mindful of descriptors that could reinforce stereotypes. Explicitly counter stereotypes. If you need to explore a specific demographic, explicitly counter potential stereotypes in your prompt. For example, write a story about a female CEO in a traditionally male dominated industry who faces unique challenges. So this kind of prompt you can use, and you can explicitly counter these stereotypes. Test with diverse prompts. Test your prompts with variations that include different demographics to see how the AI responds. This can reveal hidden biases in the model output. So, uh, in this example, you can see that all the AI system they should safeguard against potential biases. So, you know, here it is handled when we are asking about particular demographic or so stereotype. So they have handled it properly. Now, second is over reliance on default settings and pre-trained models. So many users rely on default settings and pre-trained models without considering their potential biases. These models are trained on large data sets that often reflect existing societal inequalities. The problem with this is that the pre-trained image generation model trained predominantly on images of light-skinned individual might lead to biased outputs when generating images of people. Similarly, a language model trained on text predominantly written by a certain demographic might generate text that reflect a specific worldview, neglecting other perspectives. So how we can mitigate it? Explore fine-tuning options. If possible, fine-tune pre-trained models on a more diverse and representative dataset, which is relevant to your specific use case. Be aware of the dataset biases. Research the dataset used to train the models you are using and be aware of the potential biases that are there in the data. Also consider custom training. For critical applications like medical, consider training your own models on carefully curated datasets that prioritize fairness and representation. Next is confirmation bias in output evaluation. So users might unconsciously favor outputs that align with their existing beliefs and biases, even if those outputs are unfair or discriminatory. The problem with this is that if a user already holds certain biases, they might be more likely to accept AI generated outputs that reinforce those biases, even if the outputs are based on skewed or incomplete information. How we can mitigate it? You can use diverse evaluation team, so involve individuals from diverse backgrounds in evaluating the AI generated outputs. This can help identify biases that might be missed by a homogeneous team. Red teaming is a preferred way by different organizations to evaluate AI models, along with other evaluation strategies to incorporate a diverse outlook and feedback. Objective evaluation metric. So, develop an objective metric to evaluate fairness and bias in AI output. This can include measuring representation across different demographics, analyzing sentiment and tone, and detecting the presence of stereotypes. Blind evaluation. Conduct blind evaluation where evaluators are unaware of the source or demographic context of the output. Next is lack of critical thinking and contextual awareness. Users may accept AI generated outputs at face value without critically considering the context or potential biases. The problem with this is that generative AI models are powerful tools, but they are not infallible. They can generate outputs that are factually incorrect, which are misleading or biased. Users need to exercise critical thinking and contextual awareness when interpreting these outputs. How to mitigate it? Question the output. So always question the output of the generative AI and consider its potential biases. Verify the information. Verify information generated by AI with reputable sources. Consider the context. Consider the context in which the AI is being used and potential impact of the biased outputs. So this is all about bias and fairness. Next category is ethical concerns. So there is a long debate ongoing regarding the ethical concerns related to using of GenAI. Like many past technologies, GenAI is also prone to misuse, which can negatively impact society and people in different ways. So it becomes imperative for users to understand the mistakes associated with GenAI related to ethical aspect. So following are the common user mistakes related to ethical use of generative AI. First category is misinformation and manipulation. So generative AI is capable of creating realistic text, images, and videos, which raises concerns about spread of misinformation and manipulation. First is creation of deepfakes. Realistic but fabricated images and videos can be used to spread false narratives or damage reputation. Automated generation of propaganda and information. So generative AI can be used to create large volumes of misleading content designed to influence public opinion. These are some of the recent examples where the Gen AI is being used to generate fake content and to spread misinformation and manipulate people. Next category is like, so the problem with this is uh, the this kind of misinformation and manipulation. It can cause distrust in AI systems. It can lead to financial loss to the users, and misinformation could result in some fatal situations where a government or some organization may be fatally impacted, or an individual may be fatally impacted. So, how to mitigate it? First, develop watermarking and provenance tracking techniques. So, implement methods to identify and trace the origin of AI generated content. Promote media literacy and critical thinking, educate the public about the potential for AI generated misinformation, and encourage critical evaluation of online content. Collaborate with the social media platform and news organizations. So work together to develop strategies for detecting and combating the spread of AI generated misinformation. Second concern related with ethical use is job displacement and economic inequality. So the automation potential of generative AI, it raises concerns about job displacement and widening economic inequality. So automation of creative and knowledge-based tasks. Generative AI can automate tasks previously performed by human writers, artists, and programmers, potentially leading to job losses. Exacerbation of existing inequalities. The beliefs, the benefits of GenAI may disproportionately accrue to those who already have access to technology and capital, further widening the gap between rich and poor. So, what are the mitigations? So, the problem first, we'll discuss the problems. So, the problem is like loss of jobs and instability in job market and reluctance to adoption of AI. So, how we can mitigate it? First, invest in retraining and upskilling program. So provide opportunities for workers to acquire new skills that are in demand and in the evolving job market. Explore new economic models and social safety nets. Consider alternative economic models such as universal basic income to address potential job displacement. Promote responsible automation practices. So encourage businesses to adopt AI in a way that complements human work rather than to replace it entirely. Next is lack of transparency and explainability. So the black box nature of some Gen AI models makes it difficult to understand how they arrive at their outputs. It raises concerns about accountability and trust. So the problems are like difficulty in identifying the causes of errors or biases. This leads lack of transparency makes it challenging to debug models and address ethical issues. Erosion of trust in AI systems. Users may be hesitant to trust AI systems if they cannot understand how they work. So, what are the mitigations? Develop explainable AI techniques. Focus on developing methods to make AI models more transparent and understandable. Promote open source and sharing of AI models. So, encourage the sharing of code and data to facilitate scrutiny and improve transparency. Establish clear guidelines for AI accountability. Define clear roles and responsibilities for developers, deployers, and users of AI systems. Next category of concerns is intellectual property issues and content ownership. So most of the users of GenAI use the content generated by GenAI tools without having a proper understanding of how that content is generated. As these tools are trained on huge corpus of data, it is pretty much possible that the content generated might directly be a copy of someone's copyrighted material or a material for which proper attribution is required. Users, especially in corporate setup, should be very critical while using generative AI generated content and should clarify the source to avoid any legal issues. All GenAI users should be aware of following common mistakes related to IP and content ownership. First is assuming generated content means free to use. A common misconception is that anything generated by AI is automatically in the public domain or free to use commercially. This is not the case. The legal status of AI generated content is still evolving, and there are several factors that influence its ownership. So, following are the issues related to it. The input data. So, the training data that is used can influence the output. The user or input prompt. The specificity and originality of user's prompt can influence ownership. A highly specific prompt might grant the user some rights, while a generic prompt is less likely to do so. Jurisdiction. So different countries have different legal framework regarding AI generated content. How to mitigate it? So first, check the terms of services. Carefully review the term of services of the generative AI platform you are using. They often outline ownership rights and usage restrictions. Avoid using copyrighted material as input. Refrain from directly inputting copyrighted text, images, or code into GenAI tools. Seek legal advice. If you intend to use AI generated content commercially or in a high stakes context, consult with an IP attorney. Overlooking copyright issues in training data. So, next is failing to document the generation process. So, lack of proper documentation can create ambiguity regarding ownership and hinder the ability to defend against IP claims. So the problems related to it is like difficulty in proving the originality. So without documentation, it can be challenging to demonstrate the role of the user's input in generating output. Challenges in tracing the source of the potential infringement. So if the output is found to infringe an existing copyright, it can be difficult to trace the source of the infringement without documentation of the training data and generation process. So how we can mitigate it? First, keep records of prompts and parameters. So document the specific prompts, settings, and parameters used to generate the content. Maintain a log of GenAI platform used. Record the name and version of the GenAI tool used. If possible, document training data sources. If you are training on your own models, maintain detailed records of data used for training. Next is misunderstanding the role of authorship in AI generated content. So, traditional copyright law is centered on human authorship. The role of AI in content creation raises questions about who or what is considered the author. So, what are the problems? Lack of clear legal precedents. So, current copyright law does not explicitly address the authorship of AI generated work. Debate on user versus AI as author. There is an ongoing debate about whether the user who provides the prompt or the AI itself should be considered the author. So, how we can mitigate it? Assume shared ownership or limited rights until legal frameworks are clarified. It's prudent to assume shared ownership or limited rights to AI generated content. Focus on human contribution. Emphasize on human input and creative direction involved in the generation process. Stay informed about legal developments. Keep up to date on the latest legal developments and court cases related to AI and copyright. Next is neglecting trademark considerations. So using generative AI to create brand names, logos, or other trademarks can lead to infringement issues. The problems are generation of similar or identical trademarks. The AI may generate trademarks that are confusingly similar to existing registered trademarks. Potential for trademark dilution. Using a similar trademark even in a different country can dilute the distinctiveness of the original trademark. So, how we can mitigate it? First, conduct thorough trademark searches. Before using any AI generated brand names or logos, conduct comprehensive trademark searches to ensure they do not infringe on existing trademarks. Consult with trademark attorney. So seek professional legal advice on trademark clearance and registration. Avoid generic or descriptive terms. So steer clear of using generic or descriptive terms in AI generated trademarks as they are less likely to be protectable. So the disclaimer, this is a general information and it should not be considered for legal advice. Next category and the final category is technical limitations. So generative AI systems are indeterministic in nature. That is, the response for same query could be different in different trials. Similarly, there are many other technical limitations of generative AI tools which requires caution from users' side before relying on content generated by generative AI tools. So in this example, we can see that for same query, the generative AI tool has generated different outputs. So these are the common mistakes. First one is over reliance on generative AI for factual accuracy. So one of the most prevalent misconception is that generative AI models are repositories of factual knowledge. These models are trained on vast amount of text and code, learning patterns and relationships between words. They generate text that sounds plausible, but they don't inherently know facts. They don't inherently know facts. And this can lead to these kind of problems. First is hallucinations. So this is a well-known, well-discussed category. Generative AI can confidently generate incorrect or fabricated information. Second is bias in amplification. Models can perpetuate and even amplify biases present in the training data. So how we can mitigate them? First is treat GenAI input as the first draft. Always verify information from reputable sources. Use fact-checking tools. Employ dedicated tools and techniques to validate claims. Cross-reference with multiple sources. So don't rely on single output from a generative AI model. You need to cross-reference it. Be aware of potential biases. Critically evaluate output of biased language or any other perspective. So you have to be aware of the potential biases. Second class is misunderstanding the nature of creativity. So generative AI can produce impressive creative outputs, but it is important to understand that this creativity is based on learned patterns and combinations. It doesn't possess unique or genuine understanding of intentionality. This can result in different kind of problems like lack of true novelty. Outputs may be combination of existing ideas rather than truly original concepts. Difficulty with abstract or nuanced concepts. So generative AI struggles with tasks that require deep understanding of context or subjective interpretation. How we can mitigate it? Use of generative AI as a brainstorming tool. Leverage it for generating initial ideas or exploring variations. Combine generative AI with human creativity. Use the output as a starting point for further refinement and development. Clearly define the creative brief. Provide specific instructions and constraints to guide the model's output. Next is expecting perfect coherence and contextual awareness. So while generative AI models are improving rapidly, they still struggle with maintaining long-range coherence and understanding complex contextual dependencies. This can lead to these kind of problems like contradiction with generated text. So the model may contradict itself in different parts of the output, loss of focus or topic drift. The generated text may stray from the original prompt or the context. So how we can mitigate it? First is break down complex tasks into smaller prompts. So provide focused instruction to improve coherence. Use iterative prompting. Refine the prompt based on previous outputs to guide the model toward the desired result. Review and edit the outputs carefully. Pay close attention to coherence and consistency in the outputs. Next is data model manipulation. So using generative AI involves sharing data with model, which raises important privacy and security considerations. So if you input bad data in a model, it will lead to misleading or incorrect output. So these are the problems. Uh, First is data leakage. So sensitive information entered into the model could potentially be exposed. Second one is model poisoning. So malicious actors, they could attempt to manipulate or influence the uh, model's behavior using the training data. So how we can mitigate it? First, avoid entering sensitive or confidential information. Be mindful of what data you share with the model. Use reputable and secure GenAI platforms. Choose providers with strong data privacy and security policies. Be aware of potential vulnerabilities. Stay informed about the latest security risk and the best practices. So this is all, and these are the final tips and takeaways. So the core message is not to discourage AI use, but to promote informed, critical, and responsible engagement with these powerful technologies. By recognizing potential mistakes, we can harness AI's tremendous potential while mitigating its risk. Thank you. Thank you for listening.